I'm not trying to say that.
Right. If you want to get into our NFC division winner picks.
Oh yeah. Well, I say I'm anti-Tampa. I'm just saying spoiler alert. I don't have them in this.
Yeah.
That's because
I
more
don't
of
have.
how tough the NFC is, though.
Right. Right. Um,
You can start this
you want me to
time.
go first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. So out in the NFC West, I'm picking the Seattle Seahawks to win that division. I think that and I have them going 11-5. I think that the 49ers are going to take a bigger step back than most people expect. Last year they were a super dominant team. They had a terrific run game on offense, so they could just run the ball, control the clock, keep picking up first downs. And on defense, they had a terrific pass rush to complement a great secondary. But I think in all those phases, maybe with the exception of on offense, they're going to take a pretty significant step back. Losing DeForest Buckner to the Colts, I think, was a really big hit for them. I think a huge part of the reason why they were so dominant is because DeForest Buckner opened up a lot of options on that defensive line. I know that they addressed the group in the NFL draft, but you just don't replace DeForest Buckner overnight. And I think Bosa will take a slight step back, not anything against him, but a slight step back because he doesn't have that help with him.
Mm-hmm.
And in the secondary, they're not getting any younger. Richard Sherman's a year older, and he got torched in the Super Bowl. He got burned. So I think the Seahawks win that division. Russell Wilson has been in the playoffs, I think, 7 out of 8 years in his career. He's always had a winning record. So I have the Niners taking a slight step back. In the NFC North, I have the Green Bay Packers winning it. I have them going 10-6. I think that the division will be down. I think that they'll probably win it late in the season, edging out Minnesota. I just think Detroit and Chicago are really bad football teams. And I also think Aaron Rodgers is going to be fired up going into next year. So I'm picking the Packers in the NFC North. In the NFC South, I think the Saints win that division. I have the Saints going 12-4. The Saints are loaded again. They should have been the 2 seed last year. And they added Emmanuel Sanders to their roster. Drew Brees, if he can stay healthy and, the Saints don't have to rush Taysom Hill in there or put Jameis Winston on the field, God forbid. Um, I think that the Saints can make a legitimate Super Bowl run next season. So I have them winning the South. And then out east, I have the Eagles winning that division. I think the Eagles will win that division at 11-5. I'm on the edge between 10 or 11 wins for the Eagles, but I think that they're better than Dallas. They're certainly better than Washington and New York. And I think they'll be improved off of last year. They added Darius Slay in the secondary. They did get Carson Wentz wide receiver help, maybe not the receivers Eagles fans wanted, but he's getting good receiver help. Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson are back, and hopefully they can stay healthy. But I think Carson Wentz is a really terrific quarterback. I think he's still a little bit underappreciated. And I also love Doug Peterson, so I'm picking the Eagles in the East.
Yeah, we have mostly the same here. I have the Saints being the 1 seed at 13-3, with their losses being against Tampa, Atlanta, and San Francisco. I think the Saints are still the best team in the South. I don't see how anyone could really argue against it, except for those who are drinking the Tom Brady Kool-Aid. And I think that the Cowboys are going to show, this will be the war of the year, that the Cowboys actually will be a decent team. I think they're going to go 12-4. I think they're going to lose to Baltimore, Philly, the Giants, and Minnesota. I think the Cowboys
Are you
have,
are you serious?
yes.
Wow. Hot take. The Cowboys going 12-4.
I think this team is very, I think they have the Brown syndrome where they're just extremely talented, and it just came down to needing a new coach in the room. And I think adding Mike McCarthy is a very boring move, but on paper, Mike McCarthy has had great records with the Packers for many years. And I
Yeah,
think,
McCarthy was a good hire.
but I think that this team is very talented on both sides of the ball. I mean, they made their wide receiver core even better. They have Zeke. So, I mean, they have Dak, who is going to hopefully be as good as he's always been, but people still underrate him. And obviously, Dallas has a really good defense, too. I mean, who doesn't love Leighton Vander Esch? Anyone? The next coming is Zach Thomas. And I think that the Cowboys are going to prove the haters wrong this year and actually be a good football team. I like how that's
Wow,
the line that has to be set.
yeah, that's the hottest take I think in this podcast history. The Cowboys winning 12 games.
And then I have the Packers going 11-5. I think that they will lose against Minnesota, New Orleans, San Francisco, Philly, and Tennessee. I think this is going to be more of the same of what we saw last year because the offense is basically the exact same. I'm sorry, they added a power running back into the rotation, so that might be a little different.
And Jordan Love's on the bench too. Don't count out that production.
Yes, you're right. That's going to produce huge for them this year. It's going to make
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers film twice the amount of State Farm commercials.
Yes.
I think, yeah, I don't see the team really changing that drastically at all. I mean, it's a good football team. I think the second year with Matt LaFleur is going to produce. I would be very shocked if this team is not the same narrative we saw last year. Great defense, trying to keep Aaron Rodgers from throwing less touchdowns probably. I guess they're going to try to make that narrative happen. They'll be like, see, he's in a decline. Even though we run much more and have terrible wide receivers outside of Devontae Adams. And this will be Adam Lazard's big year. Go big or go home. And then I have the Seahawks winning, going 10-6. I have them losing to Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, Atlanta, the Rams, and Minnesota. I think the Seahawks team is the best. I think Russell Wilson is the best player in this division, and he has proved year in and year out that they're going to just be slow starters and excellent finishers. And let's just face it. I mean, if the Seahawks start the season 2-2 for the seventh year in a row, and people are just going to be like, I knew this would be the year that they don't really have a defense, and Russ only has Tyler Lockett, and it will just happen again. They're going to win the division.
Yeah. It is so crazy that it's no O-line, no defense, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. And they're still going to win 10 or 11 games.
Except Chris Carson's very underrated, and Rashad Penny definitely came into his own last season after everyone being like, why the hell did they pick Rashad Penny with their first-round pick?
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Yeah, they do have two solid backs.
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't be – I mean, the Seattle team isn't depleted. It's definitely not the worst team Russell Wilson's had, but it's definitely not a team that should win the division given how tough the NFC is.
Yeah, agreed. Who are your wild card teams then?
I have Minnesota as my first wild card team going 11-5. I have them losing to Green Bay, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Tennessee, and Chicago. I have the Eagles as my second wild card team. So I think the Eagles are good like you do, except I think they have a weaker team overall than Dallas does, especially on the offensive end. I think that the Eagles are a glorified version of the Seahawks, where their offense is lackluster outside of their quarterback. I do really like Miles Sanders, though. And Alshon Jeffrey, to me, has always been like just a name. I feel like his name doesn't go with the production that he's had. Everyone remembers like Chicago Alshon Jeffrey. We have not seen that form of Alshon Jeffrey, I think, in Philly ever. And Deshaun Jackson is coming back, but let's not forget that Deshaun Jackson's 33 years old, and his entire game is based off speed. I don't think with age you get faster. And Jalen Reagor is obviously a huge question mark. I would say their best receiving target is definitely Zach Ertz, and I would honestly say their second best target is definitely Dallas Goedert. And I think that the Eagles struggled last year with secondary. They obviously addressed it, added one corner but let's not forget there was a point in the Eagles season last year where they were struggling to find corners and only had 3 at one point during the season on the roster. And I think the Eagles are still a very good team, though. I think they're very talented, very good coaching. I think Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. I think this will be the make or break year for Carson Wentz because him and Dak Prescott have this similar issue where they both can't seem to win against above 500 teams. In the case of Carson Wentz, I would say that's kind of weird because the Eagles have been very good under Carson Wentz. You would expect them to win more games against top teams in the league. And the last team I have in the wild card is San Francisco at 10-6. San Francisco, I think, is going to have a Super Bowl hangover, but I don't think it's going to be so bad that it kicks them out of the playoff picture. And I have them losing against Arizona, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Patriots, Green Bay, and Dallas.
Interesting, yeah. So my 3 wild card teams in the NFC, a little bit different from yours. I also have the Niners as a wild card team. I think they'll be a 9 or 10 win team next year. But like I said, losing DeForest Buckner is big, and they're not bringing back the same running back core that they did last year. They're going to be less talented. Nonetheless, though, Kyle Shanahan's a really creative coach, especially with the run game, with blocking schemes. But outside of that, I look at the roster and I think, what do they have? They have a below-average quarterback in Jimmy G. They have an aging secondary. They just lost a lot of playmakers on that defense, which was why they got to the Super Bowl in the first place. So I think the Niners take a pretty big step back next season. And I think that whoever they face in the first round, they're going to get bounced. Unlike you, I do think the Buccaneers are going to get into the playoffs. I just think there's too much talent for them to not. And, the thing people don't realize is how good the Tampa Bay defense has been the last few years. Their issue hasn't been personnel or even coaching on defense. It's been the fact that the offense turns the ball over 40 times a season conservatively. Like, no defense is going to be good under those circumstances.
Their red zone numbers are terrible.
But the Buccaneers have a great defense. They have Shaquille Barrett, who's one of the best pass rushers in the league. Then Ndamukong Suh is still just as productive as ever, despite what some people think. He's not posting monster sack numbers, but it's because he's eating up 2 or 3 blockers on the defensive line in the interior. They bring back JPP, who's still a really productive professional. Their linebacker core with Levante David is loaded. And on offense, they had one of the best offensive lines last season. I think they were 7th in the NFL, around there. And they were particularly good in the interior. In the 2 weaknesses they had on that line, both tackles, they went out and fixed in the offseason. They signed a tackle from the Colts, who, again, were one of the best O-lines. And then they drafted Tristan Wirfs with their first overall selection. I think, obviously, Brady has the most talent he's had possibly ever in his career. Mike Evans in
2007.
Yeah, in a long time. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are the first pair of wide receivers to both be named to the Pro Bowl this past year since the 2009 Arizona Cardinals with Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. And not even mentioning Gronk, the 2 tight ends that Tampa has, Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard, are great weapons. They're solid blockers. O.J. Howard still has a lot of potential. He's still young in the NFL. And they're going to be terrific assets for Brady to have in the red zone. I think the Buccaneers are a really good team, and I think they're going to make a playoff run next year. After them, as my final wild card team, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I do agree with you that the Cowboys are really talented this year. I feel like we've been saying that for several years, though. Like, yeah, the Cowboys are really talented. They could win 12 games, and then they never do. But obviously the big difference this year is Mike McCarthy. Like, Mike McCarthy has a Super Bowl ring. He's a really good offensive head coach. And I don't think many people question that he won't be an upgrade over what Jason Garrett was, because he will. And the defense, too, they lost Byron Jones, which I think hurts a lot. But they still have a ton of talent. DeMarcus Lawrence is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And like you said, Corey, the linebacker core is terrific with Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith. And of course, the offensive line it's been the staple of the Cowboys for the last half decade.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the best offensive lines in the league, and they have Zeke Elliott. So I think the Cowboys will be a good team next year. I think they can win 10 games. I have them at 9-7 right now, just because they haven't done it. They haven't won more than 9 games, I don't think, in a while, at least several years. But I think that they can sneak into the playoffs and that they can be a dangerous team once they're into the postseason. So yeah, the Niners, Bucs, and Cowboys are my 3 wild card teams.
So I just thought of this like quick power rank idea in my head. What if you had to power rank these 3 quarterbacks, not based on potential, based on how good you think they are now, where would you rank Jimmy G, Dak Prescott, and Carson Wentz?
Wentz 1, Dak 2, Jimmy G at distant 3.
Oh no, distant 3.
Where do you rank them?
I think I like Dak more than I like Carson Wentz.
Do you? Yeah, I that's fair actually. I mean, my issue with Wentz is just injuries.
Yeah, that
you know, I'm just assuming both guys are playing like who's more talented. I think who's more talented is Wentz.
yes, that is how I feel too. I think this like the way that quarterbacks are like viewed now, we like kind of like it's like Sam Darnold. Like we're giving Sam Darnold this like, oh my God, Sam Darnold is great, and I'm like, based off of
I'm
what?
not saying that actually. I don't agree with that.
A lot of people do. Did you see like that ESPN
Yeah.
thing where they power ranked like the 4 quarterbacks in the AFC East? They're like, which one would you have? And I'm like, this is the dumbest segment ever. 1, Jared Stidham and Tua haven't even played a single game. 2,
Fair.
Josh Allen is like just there. and 3, Sam Darnold is like all Mike Greenberg likes talking about.
Well, yeah, just the Jets fans haven't had a lot to root for. You know, Greeny can say what he wants. They haven't had much. They've had Darrelle Revis, and you know, they used to have Chad Pennington, I guess.
They had LaDainian Tomlinson for that crisp few seasons.
Yeah, they did.
Sean Green.
Man, there's been a lot of talent on the Jets.
San Antonio Holmes past his prime.
Yeah, after he won his Super Bowls.
And then brought that championship
Overpaid.
culture to anyway.